folks, welcome to Time to Talk with Claire Usen. Just had a great chat with Claire about dogs, dog behaviour, rescue dogs, but mainly about Canicross, which is something that I wanted to talk to Claire about. Don't really know much about Canicross, so it was wonderful having Claire on just to talk us through the equipment and what you do and what's involved. So settle back, get yourself a cup of tea and enjoy Time to Talk with behaviourist Claire Usen. Take care, stay safe, bye-bye. Hi folks, I'm here with the lovely Claire Usen from Usen Behaviour Referrals, and I've known Claire for a little while now, and she's one of the only people I know who does Canicross, and so I'm really interested in finding out a bit more about Canicross, what it involves, the equipment used. But first of all, I knew Claire when she had a cocker, and now she's got a Doberman. So that's something I'm interested in knowing about. So Claire, welcome to Time to Talk. I'm really glad you came to join me.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here. It's always a treat seeing you.
Oh, thank you. Doesn't always feel it. Thank you. So busy in lockdown?
Yeah, lots of things going on here. I think I've got quite a lot business-wise, sort of with owner absent issues or like prehab over rehab. A lot of people thinking about what's going to happen after the event, you know, hopefully when life returns to a new normal, what they're going to do. So from the sort of business perspective, I've been fairly busy. I'm not in any hurry to get back to in-person type work, purely from a family perspective, looking after sort of duties for my parents and what have you. So I'm not in a great hurry to get back to in-person work. I'm finding my feet with the remote bits and hopefully improving some of my videoing skills. So I'm doing little films of training certain things with my own dogs and sending them to clients and that kind of thing. I've even bought a tripod, Les.
Oh wow, I'm impressed. It's something that all of my students do. The first thing they do when they come on the course with me now is buy a tripod, because they've got to send me monthly videos. So
Yeah,
their homework,
exactly.
have to send across videos every single month, sometimes twice a month. And so the first investment is a tripod.
Yeah, it's really, really important. I mean, you know, they don't have to be expensive, fancy ones, do they? Just something you can pop your phone on and film. I've got to upload various, I'll chat about this later, but various bits for with Lemmy Cocker. I've got to do competitive obedience bits for my coach. So I have to, in the same way as your students upload training bits for you, I have to upload bits for my obedience coach. So, you know, we're all trying to find our feet remotely as to how we kind of deliver our content. Myself, my own coaches, you know. It's
stepping into that new norm, isn't it? There's something, I talk about it a lot, and I learned it when I did my NLP practitioner training. Brian, who was training us halfway through the course, I think it might have been a weekend coaching course, he was talking and he just pressed a button on his phone and started playing a metronome in the background, and it was irritating as hell. He was talking, all you could hear was tick, tick, tick in the background. We were like, what's this about? And then within probably about a minute and a half, we didn't hear it, because it had become the new norm. And when you turned it off, it was very very obvious by the silence. And again, it was having to step into a new norm. And I think that's what we're doing at the minute. We're just feeling our way and finding out what works and trying to adapt. We're thinking to not being able to go out all of the time. Although I mean, they're saying this is going to be it. I mean, the WHO apparently put out, I think they say this is going to be it for 10 years. We're going to be in and out of lockdown for the next 10 years.
Wow.
I know, it's a bit scary, isn't it? I only heard about it from Kenny yesterday. So this is going out we're recording this on the 15th of May. This won't go out for a month or so, because I've got some podcasts in front of it. So when this comes out, we'll know for sure what's going on by then. But it's all a bit It's
Yeah,
looking for the positives and not being scared, isn't it? It's like, how can I adapt what I'm doing, make me a better business owner, trainer, coach, mentor, and help people through the next stage of life with their dogs.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think it is, as you say, it's going to be this phase. My dad was speaking to me about this the other day, that it is going to be this kind of peaks and troughs roller coaster of putting the brakes on, easing off a bit. And it's going to be sort of adapt or die, really, in terms of business, isn't it? You know?
It is, it's a really strange time. So I'm going to ask you a little bit about your business normal times as well, you know, the behaviour referrals.
Yeah, cool.
You've just touched on something that I used to do, which is competitive obedience. I competed in New Zealand and in England with my gun dog.
Wow.
Yeah, I've competed abroad, which is really cool. And
You lived out there, didn't you?
yeah, I lived out there for 3 years. That's how
Yeah.
I got into behaviour. So tell me about what you do behaviour wise. Have you specialised, or are you kind of broad church, or have you because as you know, I specialise in aggression, and so aggression, working with aggressive, from barking right the way through to repeatedly drawing blood, is my speciality. And so have you specialised, Claire? What are you doing
Yeah,
behaviour
so
referral
I
wise?
also specialise in my neck of the woods. I also specialise in aggression. That is kind of like my niche, but also fear-based behaviours. I've got a real passion for, you know, things like noise phobias and any fear-based behaviours, such as, you know, owner-absent issues, such as isolation distress, separation anxiety. All of those kind of like owner-absent issues, I think those are quite important at the moment. And yeah, any type of fearful behaviours. I've had quite a few imported dogs, so a lot of not personally, client dogs. So Romania, Afghanistan. I think probably my most extreme case, still respecting client confidentiality, was a case from Afghanistan. And the pup had basically arrived soiled in a crate after a 16-hour transfer, you know.
Yes.
And so we had an issue at the beginning where the dog wasn't leaving its house and needed to be sedated to get to the vets, and it was quite a lengthy process. But now she's out and enjoying the local common, and it's all lovely. But that was due to the dedication of the owner, and the amount of time it took to rehabilitate that dog was beyond what most average owners would be able to invest. I think it was very, very fortunate that the lady was dedicated to her dogs. They were her, you know, her whole life, and she was amazing implementing everything that I recommended. And, you know, lovely lady, lovely dog, and a nice happy outcome. So yeah, I see a lot of imported dogs. Our local animal shelter seem to have a high proportion of dogs in from Eastern Europe at the moment. So I see quite a lot of aggression cases through that, without sort of saying too much sort of client wise. I have quite a few sort of bite cases that before lockdown started. In normal times, it's usually dog to dog, dog to person aggression is kind of my bread and butter, and fear-based behaviours I really love working on, probably the most, actually.
It's really interesting, isn't it, these dogs that are coming in from abroad. I mean, I've been concentrating on the pet gun dog and the pet gun dog instructor stuff, and not done so much like regular behaviour work recently, and more stuff since lockdown. But since I moved to Scotland, I haven't done as much behaviour work as I used to. And what I find is people are bringing dogs in from abroad, and the dog that turns up off the flight or off the ship, or however they're getting the dogs across, isn't necessarily the dog they thought they were getting, because the trauma of the flight or the trauma of the journey. And I know from personal experience with Angus, he was a very different dog that I got off the plane to the dog that I put on in New Zealand, because of the trauma of the noise and the travel, and it took a lot to turn him around. I mean, he wouldn't get in a car and then he would get so panicked in the car that he would express his scent glands, which was disgusting, doing like a hour journey with the dog letting go of its scent glands. But it was fear, but we got him through it, but it took a long time. And so do you think that's a lot of the problem at the minute? You know, people are expecting a dog, or they've spoken to the rescues and, you know, the Romanian rescues, and the rescue people say, oh yeah, this dog's really good and it's pretty confident and it's this and it's that, and the dog that
Yeah.
it's playing is completely different.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, I had one that was in kind of special measures in a kennels for probably with only 2 named handlers within a larger rescue centre. Had 2 named handlers for, you know, I think it was probably 8 to 12 weeks, something like that, and then was rehomed into what I would deem to be an inexperienced family. You know, dog owners previously, but not an experienced, you know, there's a difference, isn't there? You can, yeah. And, you know, the match was, I think the time, potentially they could have had a different dog, you know, if it was placed with another home, but when he came into their household, it was like the dog in kennels was not, you know, the same dog that they got out again. They met him, and in the real life rooms and everything's in the kennels, and that was all great. But as soon as you have, you know, real hallways, narrow gaps into rooms, things like that, different behaviours are expressed. And so he eventually, sort of within about, I think it was within 2 weeks of arrival at the home, had pinned the owner in a corner of the kitchen. You know, it is really difficult, and I think sometimes there's the whole, you know, owners expect this kind of gratitude or love from the dog. Do you know what I mean? Because we've rescued you from a country where, you know, you were on a scrap heap, but actually that sort of, they had free choice then, didn't they? They were feral, they could mooch around free and do what they wanted to do, and all of a sudden they're constrained by our rules and our lifestyle, and they're not grateful or happy or relieved. They're really confused, scared, and they don't have the luxury of free choice anymore. And I feel for them. I mean, one dog, she, bless her, spent ages lying out. The owners were having a beautiful extension with bifold doors and everything put on, and she spent ages out in the rubble outside, because that's where she felt comfortable, because you didn't have grass in Afghanistan, really.
No, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because when people take on a rescue dog, they take it on with the absolute best intention possible, and so they want to give a home to a dog that they think has been abused, or that has got that has had a bad start in life. And so and I hope I'm not, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, but you have the rescue kennels bringing dogs in, and I know a kennel who brought dogs in from Ireland. So they bring the dogs in and think, oh, we're going to rescue this dog, but, you know, does the dog need rescuing? Is my thought. And so people go, you know, the rescue people or the rescue kennel owners go off to these countries and they go, we're going to rescue these street dogs, but the street dogs don't necessarily want or need to be rescued. They're living the life of Riley, you know, they're living in parks, they're scavenging, they're hunting, they've got freedom of choice, they go to a park, if the park isn't working, they move on. They're not restricted as to when they go to the toilet, when they move, when they do this, when they do that. And and then they have the traumatic journey to a country where the smells are completely different. The level of vibration through the ground is completely different. Not at the minute because of lockdown, but, you know, can you imagine a dog coming from Afghanistan and then ended up in the centre of London? You know, that level of vibration through the constant traffic is so overwhelming. And then we've got the different smells, we've got the noises, we've got, and to me, for me, I would always ask myself, does this dog need rescuing? And then I think, what about the British dogs? Where are all the British dogs going? What, you know, what's happening to our rescue centres were full before we started importing dogs. Rescue
No,
always full of British dogs, you know, normally full of adolescent gun dogs, you know, adolescent guarding breeds or bull breeds. And so you'd have all of these adolescent British dogs in rescue with, you know, they'd kind of hit their teenage years and got a bit rough, and the owners couldn't cope, and so they went into rescue. So what's happened? I know this is a philosophical question, but like,
no.
I always think, what's happened to the British rescue dogs? Where are all of these British dogs that people can't cope with? If
I know.
the rescue centres are full of Romanian and Afghanistan dogs, where are the British rescue dogs?
No, I know, and it's, you know, I'm very I know it's a really contentious issue as well, and I am not.
I grasp the nettle, Claire. You know what I'm like. There's a
I know what you're like. I know,
hands.
say it as it is. I'm very sort of, I suppose, open in regards to, I think there are those times where, I don't know, like Romanian kill shelters, for example, where, you know, the dogs are getting put to sleep. And I think, you know, every life is precious. So I'm absolutely about that. And I think that it's really lovely that people, you know, they make it's their life's work, rescue. And I do, you know, I just, you know, I love dogs, and I really want, I'd love it if we didn't have to have rescue centres, and I'm sure everyone working in rescue centres would probably say the same, you know, it would be lovely. And, you know, I guess all we can do within our professional capacities is support, you know, as much as we can, you know, but there will be elements that we can't control. For example, the history, the more kind of primitive genetics of some of those dogs. There will be things that we cannot control, you know, but all we can do is support as much as we can. But yeah, you're quite right. There are those contentious issues there with regards to, you know, kennel spaces and what happens to the every dog looking. Dog.
I get concerned about the owners, actually, you know, because it's a big thing to bring dogs in from abroad. And I just know how traumatic I found it bringing Angus, and Angus was my dog, you know, he was my dog in New Zealand. And when I brought him home with me, I was working with dogs. I was quite shocked at how changed he was, you know. And he went to my friend, and I said to her, she'd never met him. She met Bart because she bred Bart. And I can remember saying to my friend, just get him out and make him walk. He knows how to walk on a loose lead. Get him out, put a lead on, make him walk on a loose lead around the woods, and give him, put his brain into a familiar situation. And to Angus, the really familiar situation was walking on a loose lead. And that helped to recalibrate his brain out of shock and into something he felt comfortable and confident with. And that really helped to bring him out of the shock and the trauma of the flight. But if you bring in a dog that hasn't got that place to go back to, you know, that ingrained memory,
sure.
And I just think, how difficult is it going to be for the dogs just to go, oh, okay, there's nothing here that is familiar to me. I don't know what to do next. My brain just seizes, doesn't it? And it seizes at that moment of fear. And so that's the thing that I find quite difficult, and that I really feel for the owners, because the owners are taking on a massive case, more so than if they took on a dog that had been rescued from 10 mile up the road.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's definitely a call for more transparency with regards to the level of work involved, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
So do you enjoy working with rescue dogs, Claire, or what's your preferred? I mean, aggression aside, you know, because aggression can happen regardless of breed and regardless of ownership and regardless of whether you've had the dog from a puppy or whether you've rescued it. So aggression it happens, you know, shit happens.
Yeah, for sure.
What's your favourite thing to work with?
My very favourite thing?
Very, very favourite.
Actually, just as a sort of, just for the change, I quite like working with puppies, just for a change, because I get lots and lots and lots of very, very serious work. And I have got such a reputation, Les, as the fun police. I am such a control freak, and there are lots of rules, and there are lots of reports, and do this, do the other. Talking about, you know, muzzle training and this and that, and, you know, a lot of my work is very, very serious. I like to think, you know, I had a very good grounding in report writing and professionalism from your good self. Yeah. And, you know, I've, you know, I think I've always been very risk averse and got all the legals in there as well, so the safety disclaimers and all of those kind of things. So it's always a very, very serious job. So actually I have the odd kind of, it's usually a word of mouth thing, because most of my work comes from either the vets or it's word of mouth and then they get their vet referral. But usually it's friends of friends that say, oh, you must speak to Claire to get a good grounding for your pup, and it's usually it's really, really good fun. So I usually spend, like, I usually encourage them to go to their puppy class as well. If it's a good puppy class locally, there's a good couple that they can go to. And then admittedly, it's usually people that have got the economic resources to be able to do that, to be able to go to have a private person come into your home and, you know, give you private one-to-one training, because it's specific to their home then, you know. So it's looking at their house geography and looking at the fact, have they got children, not children, elderly relative, is it a big breed, is it this, is it that, you know. So you can, and what time have they got, does somebody work at home, does, you know, all of the different factors. And, you know, they can go and learn their kind of, their sits, their downs. Incidentally, why don't they teach stands at puppy classes?
Do they not teach stand?
No. Well, a lot of the dogs that I'm seeing don't know how to do a stand. They're like, oh, we've never been taught how to do that.
Interesting.
So I was asking one client recently to do like neck stretches and calming, you know, calm kind of luring. And, oh, I haven't got, the problem here is we haven't got a stand. It's interesting. Anyway, I digress. So my client would go to, say, the puppy classes for, you know, a 6-week course, and then have me do the more bespoke in-house. Here's how to adapt your lifestyle to, you know, with your dog. And those, I think I really enjoy doing those because it's a bit of a refreshing change. And I love seeing that kind of forward thinking from a client as well. Yeah. It's just, and it's, puppies are cute, Les, aren't they? Let's face it.
Well, yes. I love puppies. I like going and seeing puppies and helping puppies. I'm like you, I'm a control freak. I like well-trained dogs. And so for me, having a puppy is magical. But it's kind of if you want that dog of your dreams, it's something you've got to go through. You've got to get up at like 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning and get on with it. But I know what you mean about having a break from the serious work.
Yeah, I need it sometimes.
It was gun dogs. So I would have all my serious work and then I'd have my 2 days on the field training gun dogs and having a laugh with the clients, and just it was like relief from putting yourself in front of an aggressive dog, and it was just such good fun. It was such good fun.
Because let's face it, we have to wear all the, you know, PPE and do all the health and safety stuff, and, you know, actually sometimes you just want to let your hair down, chat with your mates and have a nice time as well, don't you? You know, you've got to be able to do that to then be able to be refreshed and come back good at your job, you know, and be able to perform the best for your clients. You've got to be in a good headspace, haven't you?
Definitely. Headspace is really important, and you certainly can't put yourself in front of an aggressive dog if your energy is weak.
No,
because they'll pick up on it straight away.
Precisely. Which brings me very neatly onto some of the things that I do to kind of de-stress, if you like. So, you know, there's two different things that I was going to say with regards to the kind of extracurricular activities. One was obviously the Canicross, and that's the bigger subject that we're definitely going to cover. The other was the competitive obedience. I think that's been really, really good for me as well, because it's nice training and putting yourself out there to be critiqued and overcoming those kind of I always was quite self-conscious, you know, but actually putting yourself in a ring, being marked, it's kind of nice, and it does put you to a level where you're training, you know, higher than you're teaching in terms of like pet obedience and that kind of thing. And it's been really a lovely confidence boost and a very steep learning curve. Like I have got some, the ladies are usually in their sort of 70s and they are amazing dog handlers, like incredible.
Who are you training with?
I've got a couple of coaches. They're not in their 70s, by the way, before I get shot down.
The lynch you for that.
I've been lynched. I've got a couple of coaches. One is Jo Hill. She's amazing. And I'm doing her online course at the moment. And the other is Sandra Spruce. And
I know Jo, but I don't know Sandra.
Yeah, she's a ticket handler with her older boy. So yeah, I go to 2 different clubs in normal times, although I'm doing quite a bit remotely at the moment. And like last year was the first that I competed my little cocker Lemmy. So we did like the Midlands and the Southwest shows and what have you. And it was just really fun, you know, you get a different group of people, bit of a network, and yeah, it was great fun, challenging and a little bit stressful as well, for sure. And so precise, so precise.
It's a really good discipline, because I started in New Zealand, because I went out in New Zealand and as a gun dog person and a kinesiologist, and then I started doing competitive obedience. And the way we did it, the guy I trained with didn't use food, which is really interesting, trying to get a dog that precise and that tight on the leg with no food and no toys. It certainly teaches you how to be a technical dog trainer. And but training a dog to that level of precision, it's hard work. You have to really be dedicated and you have to be really motivated to get out there and do it all the time. We used a wrap around the leg rather than the head going straight up and down, which I know is the fashion at the minute. And it's the one thing that puts me off going back to competitive obedience because of
physical elements.
Yeah, because of I teach comparative anatomy and physiology, and I teach you know, I work with kinesiology with dogs, and so I know the damage it can cause to a dog unless it is looked after properly. And also you're doing the neck stretching, you're doing the stretching, you're working your dog on both sides of the body, you're doing hamstring stretches, you're doing full body stretches. Whereabouts are you, Claire? Whereabouts in the country are you?
I'm Cheltenham, so Gloucestershire. We're quite landlocked. So Cheltenham races and that lot.
Because one of the lady, and I've mentioned her in pretty much all of my books, Dee Stedman, and she's a ticket handler. She trained me in competitive obedience, and I come back from New Zealand, and she's a phenomenal trainer. She's around the Birmingham area, and
that's close. That's an hour away.
Amazing handler, and she taught me an awful lot about using food and balance, you know, balancing your training between boundaries and rewards and stuff, and she's taught me an awful lot in relation to motivation. And she would always have me work the dogs on both sides of the body, so my dogs could come in close on the right or on the left, and we did lots of circling with the dogs just to make sure that they were balanced equally. So I think competitive obedience is fantastic as a sport, providing which the dogs like athletes, and make sure they see physios and acupuncture and
I mean, mine are lucky because they have regular physio with Cotswold Dog Spa in Hartpury. There's a big university locally, Hartpury University, and so they go there and they've got physios, and you know my old boy Otis, he gets spoilt because he has lots of treatments and everything. In normal times he'd be there every week, and we've got a lovely acupuncturist called Lindsay Brazil, and she comes to the house, which is just lovely. It's just so nice, and I never thought Otis would relax for acupuncture, but he loves it. He'll just lie there with Lindsay and just zone out. It's lovely.
So how did you get into Canicross?
Canicross, well, I've always been sporty anyway, save for probably, you know, a few years in my 20s when I discovered boys and partying, I should imagine.
Yeah.
I've always been like, you know, half marathons, martial arts, that kind of thing. So I've always been kind of sporty. And Gretel, my current Dobe, because I've had 3 Dobermans before, she's my 3rd Dobe. And she was really, really athletic, sporty. One of the main, you know, reasons I love Dobes, I mean, they're just so powerful and athletic and just gorgeous to look at as well. I mean, look at me, shallow as a teaspoon, aren't I? But they are.
You've got to like how your dog looks. If you don't like how they look, you won't train them.
Exactly. And she just loves to run. And I thought, well, do you know what? It's mega time efficient if we could both exercise. Because she, at the time, because my girls are quite close in age, so Lemmy, little Cocker, is 2 and Gretel's 3. So Lemmy at the time had different exercise requirements because she was a pup. My older boy, he's got spondylosis, so he's got different exercise requirements. But Gretel needed more, you know. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, really time efficient, let's sort of strap the trainers on and see how we do. Well, she loved it, you know. And it's worth saying, I'm not a Canicross pro or a business or anything like that. I don't offer it as part of my my sort of service offerings, but I am a really keen enthusiast. So I love, you know, love competing, mainly at kind of trail races that accept dogs. Because I obviously, with my behaviourist hat on, I'm not passionate or happy necessarily at this point, certainly not with Gretel, with the mass starts that you see at Canicross races. No. Sometimes it's not for me. So yeah, we mainly do races that accept dogs as an aside, and they usually do a separate wave, which is ordinarily started 5-10 minutes before the other runners. Mm-hmm. So you'll have your normal runners go off, you know, not abnormal weirdos like us strapped to dogs, and you know, they'll go after us like 10 minutes after or something.
So tell me about the Canicross, because you've just said strapped to dogs, so you don't run. I mean, I used to go running with my dogs years ago, but not Canicross, so I would run with my dogs running beside me to heel on a loose lead.
Yeah,
which is not what you do on Canicross.
No, absolutely. I want, you know, my Canicross dog to pull like a train. I want her out in front of me. So I've got certain kit that I need to have. As you mentioned before about sort of physical safety, there's a few bits of kit that are essential if you want to start running with your dog. Obviously, you can free run, because I wanted to see if she liked running first. You can free run to begin with to see whether your dog's got a passion for, you know, keeping up with, because your dog's got to be of a suitable age and fitness level to want to do it. So even if you're a seasoned marathon runner or sprinter, you know, your dog isn't yet, so you've got to build them up. So the core bits of, so the core bits of kit that you're going to need are a really well-fitting harness for the dog, and you know, there's loads out there, loads of great brands. I get mine from Norway actually, just because they do a really nice fit for Gretel. They do like an extra harness, and it's safe. It's got a scuff guard down the front because she's a diva Doberman and she's got very sensitive skin.
Yeah, really, really fine skin. Can I talk to you about the harness? Because as you know, I'm very, very anti harnesses.
Yes, so it needs to be
dogs, but the Canicross harness is designed for dogs that pull.
Yeah.
So designed to make and encourage dogs to pull, whereas people are using harnesses to try and stop the dogs from pulling, which kind of goes against what harnesses were designed for. So tell me about the Canicross harness.
So the Canicross harness has got to be really comfortable. Obviously there's companies that you can literally email and say, my dog's these different measurements, and you do have to measure your dog carefully, and they'll give you fitting advice, etc. So if you're interested in starting running, that's the best thing to do, to go to a professional company. A lot of them do it with no obligation to buy because they are sports people themselves and absolutely passionate about dogs being safe when they're running. There's a few different ones that we can obviously share links to, but it needs to be comfortable on their chest. It needs to not impinge their windpipe. It needs to not finish past the last rib, because you don't want it pushing up into the soft parts of the belly either.
And the
you don't want that.
You don't want to hit the organs.
Yeah, precisely. You don't want it to be kind of easily coming off over their head, especially if you've got maybe a rescue dog or a sight hound that might bolt, like a lurcher that might bolt or something, so they're always exercised on lead. So you want it to also be safe. So it's really important that they can feel comfortable to put their weight into it. Some dogs feel less confident than others. Some dogs don't give you a glance back unless you say something. Gretel being one of them, my dog, she will literally just head down, straight line, go.
So what about the front end? I mean, we've talked about the harness needs to follow, if you like, that last strip, so that when the dog leans into it, it's not pushing up on the organs in the abdominal area.
Yeah.
So what about the front end? Because the thing that I dislike about harnesses is that it impedes the action of the shoulder, because dogs, unlike us, don't actually have collarbones. And so they need that gliding action coming forward off the ribs, so they can really extend and get their legs as forward as they can. What goes on around the chest?
Yeah, around the, you know, great that you said that. And that beautiful sort of gliding action is, you know, it's so necessary, you know, and yeah, you don't want anything. So the worst thing you could possibly do, which I've seen over at the park the past sort of, you know, couple of months of lockdown, is people started to run with their dogs in, I won't say any brand names, but
I know exactly
brands.
which one you're talking about.
Yeah, the cross chest thing, you know, and
like a breastplate, what you see on a horse, straight across the chest.
Awful for walking, absolutely injurious and debilitating for running. Never ever use it, you know. So yeah, around the chest, it just gives really clear there won't be any impingement. I can send you some photos, but literally it's just up the breastplate and really deep past the shoulder, the elbow. So you've got a good few inches from, you know, a couple of inches from elbow, so it doesn't impinge shoulder movement at all.
It's very much a Y design, isn't it?
Yeah, very much a big Y design. And then from that harness, you've got a tug rope, and the tug rope makes sure that the harness doesn't sort of bash against the dog, and it comes out in a nice straight line, and that the clip of the bungee line doesn't hit them on the bum or anything like that. You want it in a nice sort of like horizontal line. The bungee goes onto a waist strap that you're strapped to on the hips, and there's lots of different brands and designs and everything, but you know, you've got your leg straps, and you know, it goes into the nice belt for you, and it just, you know, straps and pulls, you know. So it's a belt, a bungee, and a harness. Those are the three core you know, kit. And for yourself, a decent sports bra and trail shoes are probably my best recommendation.
Oh, sports bras are a must. Oh my goodness.
They are a must.
Regardless of how busty you are or not, a sports bra must.
In my case, not, but it's just important, isn't it? Good sports bra, good trail shoes.
So can I ask you about the harness that you wear? So it goes around your pelvis?
Yes.
Okay, so it's almost like a butterfly design around the pelvis, is that right?
Yeah, just like clips around the pelvis, and a lot of them have leg straps as well, and that is just to make sure it doesn't go riding up to your waist, because that would be injurious on your lower back as well. You know.
So what happens, because I look at people running Canicross who aren't probably fit enough in themselves to do it, and so they haven't developed the core muscle, they haven't developed, you know, the first time they run, they're getting pulled along by a tank of a dog or a train of a dog, rather than running on their own and developing good core muscles, good obliques, strong back, strong pelvis. And so sometimes, and I'm sorry for the people who are listening to this rather than seeing it, but sometimes they're getting pulled like this by the pelvis, and they're almost leaning back. And so from my perspective as a kinesiologist, I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, there's so much strain on the pelvis coming forward, in relation to like the sacroiliac joint, which is where the hip bone's attached to the spine. And so when I look at, it's probably somebody who's an inexperienced, not just an inexperienced Canicross runner, but an inexperienced runner as well, and not completely fit. I mean, even when I was running, I probably wasn't fit enough to do Canicross. So
yeah,
how
I
did
think
the pelvis work for you? Because I'm always very conscious of injury and throwing the body out of balance. Because I think running with your dog is a fantastic thing to do. It's a very primal thing. You're going hunting with your dog, and the dogs love it and respond to it, and they just it just massively improves the bond that you have with your dog, because these are out there together, these are hunting, these are doing all of these amazing one man
totally
and a dog thing. It's really primal. But then sometimes I look at people and you go, oh God, is that really damaging your pelvis? So tell me how the harness feels, Claire, because I've not used one. I've not done Canicross.
So they're really, really comfortable. I mean, I've got mild sciatica anyway that I manage through like my own physio and physio exercises that I have to do anyway. It doesn't stop me from, in fact, actually in some instances it helps, it does provide a little bit of support. But I would say, I mean, I don't personally run without Gretel at all. I used to, but I don't anymore. But I would say cross train or you'll both injure, and that goes for both human and dog. So I have to do weights at home. I have to do like I know it's all a bit sad.
This is great, Claire. This is exactly what I was getting at, because I think Canicross is a really good thing people can do. As you say, you haven't got a lot of time. Sometimes you haven't got time to exercise your dog and go for a run. So why not save on time, do both of them together?
Yeah. So
Canicross, but the level of fitness required before you go down that route to prevent injury for you and prevent injury for your dog is really important. So you do weights as well. So you do your weights.
I do weights, yoga. I do HIIT, so high intensity interval training. Just like YouTube videos and what have you. There's a really great trainer called Rainier Pollard, and he does like Tabata and HIIT training. So that builds your.
I love Tabata.
It's really good because you can do anything for 20 seconds, can't you?
Within reason. Yeah.
So it really is a great kind of way to build your cardiovascular fitness, because I guarantee you there will be that one time that your dog sees a squirrel and you better have the fuel in the tank to be able to keep up with them, because your brakes aren't necessarily going to work. So you've got to have that cardio fitness there as well. Certainly in my case, Gretel's like 37, 38 kilograms, and when she wants to put her back into it, that's another thing. She's got a really quite a high level of like prey drive, so she wants that run, that chase, etc. as well, which makes her better at it. But yeah, I would say definitely in normal times, I probably only run 2-3 times a week, if that. 2-3 times a week is normal for me, and the rest of the time I just cross train, because you've got to be careful as well that you don't create some sort of super fit machine of a dog as well. You don't want that, because the minute you bust your ankle going over a tree root, you've then got to deal with the aftermath of a dog bouncing off the walls at home, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you just want to make sure you've got a good kind of, I don't always like the word balance, but a good sort of like harmony between, all the different things that you're doing, really. So she also does physio. She also does free running at her field. She does a little bit of everything, a bit of obedience training. She does a bit of Otis's physio and Lemmy's competitive obedience training just at home with me, or over at the field with me. But it's got to be a good balance. It can't all just be, her just putting her back into it and running. Otherwise she'd be absolutely lawless.
Yeah, and too much pressure as well on the hind end if they're pulling you can, which you don't want. So are you doing competitive obedience with her as well, Claire?
No, I'm not. It wouldn't be suitable for her. I don't think she'd really enjoy it as much. But Lemmy is, but I'll do some of the training with her, just so it's keeping her brain active and ticking over, because she would, she's a real bright girl and she wants to be learning and doing things as well. And I think that's important. They can do more than one thing. I know I see a lot of kind of Canicross dogs, and that is the only thing they do. Fine if you're up in the upper echelons of competitiveness with it, but I think for most dogs they kind of need to do a bit of kind of more lower key, lower octane, lower arousal stuff as well. I think that's important, because I mean saying that, there are like the psychological benefits to Canicross as well, like for Gretel and for myself. So I definitely find the pace therapeutic in the main. So I generally run kind of like, my main distance is like half marathon distance. I'm trying to do distance challenges this year. I'd like to do a marathon this year, and I'd like, on my own, obviously. I know there's no group marathons. And I've just signed up to like this virtual Norwegian race, which is like 620 kilometers or something, but you've got until October to do it. So it's not like, I'm not doing it in, you know, no time at all. And I just did an endurance life one as well. So I'm not a sprinter, so the pace is quite therapeutic. It's not balls to the walls all the time, flat out. So you kind of get that kind of endorphin effect, I think, you know. So she is usually in a kind of in the zone, if you like. You get deeper sleep for both of you as well. She will sleep like a baby, so deeper sleep for both of you. I think but all these psychological benefits, I'll stop saying for both of you, because it is for both of you. So deeper sleep, a sense of more calm, you know, as you mentioned before, a better bond. Like after I've done a big run with her, she'll come up to me and kind of just like nudge my arm and look at me, or lick me and walk off. And she's generally not like that with me. She's more of a daddy's girl at home. But if I've done something with her like that, she just kind of checks in with me a bit more, maybe comes and lies at my feet. So it's nice. There's definitely an unspoken word that, you know, we've had this shared endeavour together. So yeah, it's really, I find it really special, and I think she does as well.
And I think from an intrinsic perspective from the dog, you know, as we know, dogs don't go for a walk because the sun's shining, the birds are singing, let's just go for a poodle. And they go hunting, they reinforce the territory, or they migrate. And when I see, does she run or does she lope when you're out? So is she cantering, or
what are you trying to say, Les?
No, because I know when I used to run with Ziggy, I mean, I can't run now. My knees just, I cannot run. Even I can't even run 500 yards now. I'll be on my knees. My knees will literally give way on me, so I don't run at all. But when I used to run with Ziggy and Angus, they never cantered as such or galloped. I mean,
it's more of a lope, a trot.
They used to do that real free-ranging, fast lope, the way that dogs do and wolves do. You know, I've worked with wolves, the way that wolves do when they're migrating, and they get into that steady, fast, ground-eating lope.
Yeah.
That just puts the dog psychologically in the perfect space.
Yeah.
You know, that brain is moving forward, it's moving forward with balance, the body's moving forward with free movement, ground eating low. Is that where Greta is as well?
Yeah, I mean, you just put that so eloquently. It was beautiful. I loved listening to that. Yes, absolutely. This beautiful ground eating lope. That is, you know, a lovely way to put it. That is her pace. You know, sometimes she'll come back from a run, especially if it's a shorter run. She's barely panting, and I am just sort of covered in sweat, gasping for air, you know. And it's kind of a bit insulting, I think, but never. I think she just looks at me, amateur.
Call yourself an animal, really?
I know, for sure, but yeah, you will get the odd bit of turbocharge after a squirrel or something like that, or at the end of a race, if you've got, you know, people to catch up with and she can see an end in sight, you will get a canter and a real kind of like pull, and that's incredible. Your legs don't feel like they're going to turn over fast enough. It's like, yeah, it's a little bit dicey sometimes, especially if you're downhill and it's technical.
Oh, Craigie.
Oh, I know, it is. It's ankle breakers, some of it. I'm sure I'll be on borrowed time with my ankles and knees and everything as well, because I was 40 last year, so yeah, we'll see.
Oh, you and Ross, you know, Ross is like, oh God, I'm so old.
I know.
Spring chickens, my goodness.
I think we're both drama queens. I was going to say, don't tell him I said that, but this is a podcast.
You could hear this.
Oh, well.
Oh dear.
But yeah, it's generally that beautiful lope that, you know, I just think is so beneficial for her, and it's yeah, it's nice, and it helps me. I don't think I really want to run without her now.
Yeah, I mean, from a psychological perspective, doing that run with the dog is phenomenal from their perspective, because it just does everything that a dog needs, you know. When you're out walking with the dog and the dog's ahead of you, they don't canter, they might play, but they tend to go into that migration mode, and it's a big lope. So Claire, it's been an absolute joy talking to you. Before you go, I've got to ask you about your t-shirt. Not so much for me, because I know who the CFBA is.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, so the Canine and Feline Behaviour Association is an organisation that's really close to both of our hearts. As you've got the t-shirt on, I'm going to let you say what it is.
Well, I will do my very best. So it is our professional membership body, Canine and Feline Behaviour Association, and it's fantastic. You've got associate members, and then you've got full members, and then you've got your fellows. Is that right? Yeah. So you work up through, and when you become a full member, you are able to do sort of insurance work for vets as well. So that's been a really important thing for me and my business, because it means that my clients it opens doors for them, because they're able to essentially afford my services for some of my clients, you know, because their insurance will then pay for it, which is fantastic. Another benefit is that we have this great community. We have you know, a network of like-minded professionals, different specialisms. So if I had a gun dog question, I could ask yourself, Les. If I had a working trials question, I could ask Ross, you know, and lots of different disciplines. And I think it's nice having that kind of nationwide, in fact, international network, isn't it? You know, we've got people overseas as well. So yeah, it's a really good, and you've got wherever you are in the country, you can look, if you need a behaviourist, you can look on a map and do a search by location, and you've got kind of that reassurance, that stamp of approval that we've all been trained to a really high level, you know. So it's kind of a nice reassurance for the dog owning public, I think, to know that we are of that standard.
It is, and you know, the vetting that goes on before you're allowed to join as an associate, let alone a full member, is massive. You have to have referrals from vets and references from clients and so on. So there's a lot, and assessments, you know, there's lots of assessments. So I think it's personally, I think it's the best organisation out there. Certainly the most experienced members working frontline aggression, and highest qualified, as you say. We've all been educated to a very, very high level, practically and academically. We kind of know our stuff, which is wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yay!
I know, go us. Claire, it's been such a pleasure. Is there anything else you want to say before we call it a day? Because I'm just I know you do lots of things, you know, not just Canicross. It was Canicross I wanted to talk to you about, primarily for the equipment used as well as the sport. But is there anything else you want to say about it before we call it a day?
No, I just hope it's not too long until we can all meet up in person again, and maybe have a kind of a bit of a get together, and maybe a bit of a, you know, a training, then a social conference or something like that. That would be really cool, wouldn't it, to get everyone together?
It would be really good. I think, as you suggested it, that you should take it forward and organise it.
Yeah, why
organise
not?
guest
Well,
speakers
when we're allowed to.
Yeah, no, go for it. Well, you know who's going to be listening to this, so you'll probably get a phone call from Mr. McCarthy and saying, right, get it organised.
Get organising. No, but it's been a pleasure. Thanks ever so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed it, and I just wanted to sort of say to everyone to, you know, stay safe, and yeah, I hope everyone's keeping well.
Yeah, really important, and hopefully by the time this goes out, we'll be, if not out of lockdown, certainly knowing what we're doing in relation to going forward and getting through the next year and the next couple of years, is the virus keeps coming round on an annual basis. So Claire, it's been an absolute joy. Good luck with your online training and your puppy work, and have real good fun with your gorgeous dog, and I shall see you again soon.
Thank you, Les. Take care.
Stay safe, Claire. Bye bye.